I don't recall ever electing anyone to the presidency that's under FBI investigation, for example. And why? Why is she under FBI investigation? Because she put classified information on her server that she knew foreign intelligence agencies could get a hold of. She didn't care. You know why? Because she thinks she's above the law. So her plan was, I'll get elected president, then I'll pardon myself. And they can't, I guess. But here, on a more serious, that's serious, but here's what's really serious. Hillary Clinton can never be commander-in-chief. And here's why. But here's why. She lied to the families of those victims in Benghazi. She lied to them. She told them that their relatives had died because of a video. Their relatives did not die because of a video, and she knew it. They died because of an orchestrated terrorist attack. And I deeply believe that anyone who lies to the families of people who have lost their lives in the service of our country can never be the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. So we have to win this election. We can't lose this election. And that's why this election is not just about making a point. This election has to be about making a difference. A difference. A different direction for America than the one we're headed on right now. And if we need a better reminder of it, Saturday, tragically and sadly, we saw how important this election is. Because Justice Scalia, in the history of this republic, there has never been someone so articulate, so passionate, and so consistent behind the idea that the job of the Supreme Court is to apply the Constitution according to its original meaning. We don't have enough people on the court that believe that, and we lost him. And so now he needs to be replaced, and the next president should replace him, not this one. I will do everything I can in my time in the Senate to keep this one from appointing a Supreme Court justice. So, you want to know why we can't lose? Because if the next president of the United States is Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton, they are not going to appoint anyone that's like Antonin Scalia. On the contrary, they're going to appoint the total opposite. And then the balance of the court is gone. Then you will consistently have 5 to 6 Supreme Court justices who will rule that the Constitution is a flexible document that can mean whatever you want it to mean. You know what that means? The Second Amendment is in trouble. That means the Commerce Clause will now mean the federal government can be in charge of anything they want. That's what the Obamacare ruling basically said. The Commerce Clause gives the federal government to take charge of virtually every aspect of our lives. So the consequences are extraordinary. So we have to win this election. Today I'm here to ask you for your vote because I am as conservative as anyone running, but I am a conservative that can win. First of all, I'm as conservative as anyone that's running. I have a 15-year record of turning conservatism into action. I didn't become a conservative 2 years ago. I've been doing it for 15 years. So, for example, when I was in the state legislature in Florida as a part-time job, not a full-time job, but I was a state legislator for 8.5 years. 2 of those years I was the speaker. Before I became speaker, we wanted to take on eminent domain abuse. Because, for example, I'm not saying this would ever happen, but let's just say that like a real estate developer tried to use the power of government to take over private property using eminent domain. Just theoretically. You can't do that in Florida because we passed a law under my leadership that prevents you from doing that in Florida. In Florida, a private developer, not that this would ever happen, cannot take your property away from you using the power of government. Then I became Speaker of the Florida House. We cut taxes. I led the effort to cut property taxes. We actually created career academies so that kids can graduate from high school ready to work as welders, plumbers, pipe fitters, electricians, airplane mechanics, car technicians, vocational training. When I was Speaker of the Florida House, we balanced the budget not once but twice in the middle of an economic downturn without raising a penny in taxes. And we reformed public school curriculum without Common Core, without the federal government. We did it the way it's supposed to be done, at the local level. Okay? Then I was out of politics for a couple of years, wanted to be a private citizen, had a chance to run for the Senate. I was an enormous underdog. Literally, my opponent was the sitting governor of Florida, who was a Republican. His name was Charlie Crist. Well, we weren't supposed to win that race. The entire establishment of the Republican Party in Washington was against me. But I ran, and we won. Actually, before he actually switched, he became an independent. And then he became a Democrat 2 years later, ran for governor, lost again. Now he's a vegetarian. He keeps shifting. That joke was even funnier in Iowa because it's illegal to be a vegetarian in Iowa. So, yeah. I got to be careful. I mean, I lost the vegetarian vote in both New Hampshire and Iowa. So I better stop telling that joke. But anyway, the point is that we weren't supposed to run. So we ran. I run in the Senate. And in the Senate, we've achieved real things. Today, there are sanctions on Hezbollah, an anti-Israeli terrorist group controlled by Iran, because I led the effort in a bipartisan way. Today, we've leveraged U.S. foreign aid to go after things like human trafficking, where little kids, especially little girls, are being sold as slaves. We dealt with that in our time there. In my 4 years in the Senate, we brought accountability to the VA. Today, you can fire someone at the VA who's not doing a good job because of a law that I passed. And by the way, and we got rid of the bailout fund in Obamacare. They had created a bailout fund. They were going to bail out private insurance companies with your money. And I led the effort, and we got rid of it. And when I'm president, we're getting rid of the rest of Obamacare once and for all. So you look at the scores, you look at the rankings, my record in both the Senate and in my time in the House is as conservative as anyone. I have a 15-year record of taking conservatism and applying them to solutions. But I'm a conservative that can win. We can win because I'll tell you, I can unify this party. This party's divided right now. And we're not together. We lose this election. But we can't just unify. We have to grow it, too. That means we have to take our message to people that don't vote for us now. Who are the people that don't vote for us? Primarily, people that have been told for 25 years by the press, by the Democrats, by the left. Republicans don't care about people like you. What's the common theme you hear out there? Republicans are for the rich, Democrats are for the working class. What a lie. That's a total lie. The Democrats are for big government. You know who wins when big government takes over? The people who can influence government. When big government takes over, the economy doesn't grow, which means the people with influence over government, they're the ones that win. You want proof? Go anywhere in the world where government dominates the economy, and I promise you it is the same families and the same companies that have dominated that economy decade after decade, generation after generation. That's why people leave those places. In societies where government dominates the economy, the same people always win and everybody else gets stuck. That's not the case here. You know that in America we're only 5% of the world's population and we're 40% of the world's millionaires? Think 5% of the world's population, 40% of the world's millionaires. Do you know that the overwhelming majority of American millionaires did not inherit their money? That isn't possible virtually anywhere else in the world. So we know free enterprise works. But you know who we're really going to take our message to as well? People that aren't trying to become millionaires. When you become a teacher or a firefighter, a police officer, a nurse, you know you're not going to become a billionaire doing that work. You do it because you like your work, and you do it because it's something you enjoy and pays you enough to own a home, raise your family, retire with dignity, give your kids the chance at a better life. Let me tell you, free enterprise is the only economic model in the world where that's possible. It's the only economic model in the world where you can make poor people richer without having to make rich people poorer. That is the system we believe in, and we are going to take it to people. And I know that I can take that message to people that today are struggling, people that don't vote for us, because that's where I come from. That's how I grew up. I've lived paycheck to paycheck. A few days ago, someone asked me to define paycheck to paycheck. I said, here's paycheck to paycheck. It's when you write a check on Wednesday, though you know you're not going to get paid till Friday, so you date it Saturday. That's paycheck to paycheck, right? I grew up that way. I mean, not bouncing checks. No, I'm not saying that. My parents lived paycheck. They were a bartender and a maid. When we first got married, we lived that way. By the way, I'm also going to take our message to young Americans, some of whom are sitting on thousands and thousands of dollars of student loan debt. You know who has the student loan debt in America? It's the people whose parents don't make enough money, so they can't pay for you to go to school. but they make just enough so they don't qualify for financial aid. So now you get hit with these loans. You know how much loans have gone up by in America? 500% in 10 years. 500%. 500%. Oftentimes loans that you borrowed for a degree that doesn't even lead to a job when you graduate. You know why I feel so passionately about this? Because I had a student loan. Over $120,000 is what I owed. I've never met her, but I paid Sally Mae a lot of money. That's a new joke I've worked in the last few days. Yeah. See, some people don't like when I repeat myself, but it's funny, so I'll say it. You know who else we're going to take our message to? Families raising children, because Jeanette and I are raising our 4 children. And let me tell you what we know for a fact. It is harder than ever to raise your children with the right values in this society. We are being bombarded left and right from everywhere by values that try to replace the ones we teach in our churches, in our synagogues, and in our homes. We are going to take our message to people that haven't voted for us before. And we are going to convince them to vote for us this time. We are not just going to unify this movement. We're going to grow it, and we're going to win. And when we win, we're going to make a difference. We are going to do what I've done for 15 years. We're going to take our conservative principles and apply them to the challenges of today. The first is we're going to bring the federal government back to its proper role. See, we've gotten into this point in America where we think the federal government's has an answer for everything, right? It doesn't. That's not the role of the federal government. The federal government is supposed to be our most limited government. Its powers clearly delineated in the Constitution. If it's not on that list of powers, you don't have it. And yet, even now, even in our own party, we're expected to have a federal solution for everything. There is no federal solution to the BCS system in college football. There is no federal solution to abuses of fantasy football. There is no federal solution to some of the problems in our society. If it even has a government solution, it's probably at the local or at the state level. And a lot of our problems need to be solved in our homes and in our communities. When I win, we're going to have a president that knows that the job of the president is to faithfully execute the laws, not change them, not redefine them, and certainly not ignore them, which is what this president does now. You elect me, you're going to have a president that when he takes the oath of office, I'll actually mean it. That means I will defend the Second Amendment because you have a right to protect your property and your family from criminals and from terrorists. Second, you're going to have a president that understands that government doesn't create jobs. It's the private sector that creates jobs. Okay? I always chuckle. I hear these governors or a mayor, somebody will say, when I was governor, we created 3 million jobs. And I say, really? So you hired 3 million people to work for the government? Because if not, you didn't create the jobs, the private sector did. Our job is to put in place policies that allow the economy to grow. See, what do the Democrats and the left offer people that are struggling? They offer them class warfare and government programs and higher taxes on somebody. It doesn't work. The only thing that will allow people to prosper is a growing, prosperous economy where America is the easiest place in the world to start a business or to grow one. And that's what creates jobs that pay more money. Why did my parents have a job at a hotel, for example? Because someone who had access to money risked the money to open up the hotel. Because Americans had enough money in their pocket to travel to Miami Beach or to Las Vegas and spend a week or 3 days. That's why they had a job. And you can only have that if the economy is growing. The answer to our problems is economic growth. And what it takes to have economic growth are policies that allow our economy to compete again. That's what you need from your president, an active spokesperson and an active participant in the process of ensuring that our policies on taxes, on regulations, on the debt, on energy allow us to compete and grow. And that's what we're going to do. When I'm president, we are going to re-embrace the free enterprise system again so that you, the private sector, can create the jobs of the 21st century. So we are going to bring the Constitution back, and we're going to infuse it in everything we do. We're going to put federal government in its proper role, and we are going to help the private sector succeed through our policies. But there is one thing the federal government does have to do. It's one of the main reasons why we have a federal government, to keep us safe. National security is the most important obligation of the federal government. It is the primary reason why we have one. And as much as anything else, the reason why this president is a failure is because he is a terrible commander-in-chief. A terrible commander-in-chief. What kind of commander-in-chief gleefully cheers on these defense cuts that we're going through right now? Because they're dangerous cuts. They're dangerous. Look at the world around us. North Korea is governed by a certified lunatic who has nuclear weapons. The Chinese Communist Party that governs that country, we have no quarrel with the Chinese people. The Chinese Communist Party, they steal our inventions. They hack into our computers. They practice blowing up our satellites. And they are undertaking the most rapid and massive military buildup in the history of mankind, right underneath our nose. Vladimir Putin is sowing instability in the Middle East and in Europe. Iran is going to get $100 billion of sanctions relief, which they're going to use to build up their military and one day acquire a nuclear weapon of their own. Radical jihadists, radical Islamic jihadism is growing. Particularly this group ISIS, the most dangerous jihadist group in the history of mankind. And in the face of all these threats, what is this president doing? Well, the first thing he's doing is playing golf. Listen, these guys are brutal. Jeez. It wasn't meant as a question, but you answered. It's like, and it was amazing. You all said the same thing. It's like, yeah, it's like a matter of fact. He's playing golf. Here's what I really wanted to say about that. Oh, the golf thing, whatever. Because I said the golf thing one time at the Republican National Convention, and I got a letter from the National Golf Association. Please stop making fun of golf and blah, blah, blah. So I am not anti-golf, okay? I just think our president should first, before he goes to play golf, rebuild our military. He's not. You know what he's doing? He's gutting. He is gutting the military. Our army is about to become the smallest size it's been since the end of World War II. The Navy is about to be smaller than it's been in 100 years. And our Air Force is about to be not just smaller, but our airplanes older than ever. You know what the average size of an Air Force plane is today? 27. That means the pilots are younger than the planes. That's not a good sign. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable that there are some Republicans that have been okay with this. This is ridiculous. Before we fund anything else, we should fully fund our military. When I'm president, we are rebuilding the U.S. military. When I'm president, you're going to have a president that every single day is going to admit that we are at war with radical jihadists and radical Islamists. Because we are. By the way, I don't like war. We don't like war. We don't want war. The only reason you should ever go to war is in the furtherance of peace. You are trying to defeat an enemy of peace. ISIS is an enemy of peace. There is no diplomatic accommodation with ISIS. There's no diplomacy with them. They don't have ambassadors. They don't have embassies. ISIS has to be defeated militarily, and it won't happen unless we lead the way. Other countries have to do more. Saudi Arabia is a rich country. They're not doing enough. Egypt needs to do more. Jordan has done a lot. It's a small country. We're actually holding Jordan back. But we're going to have to show some leadership here. And we will when I'm president. We're going to have a real war on terror, which means the best intelligence agencies in the world, ours, are going to tell us where these terrorists are. And the best military in the world, which we're going to rebuild, is going to destroy these terrorists. Now, every now and then, we're going to capture some of these terrorists alive. They're not coming to South Carolina. If we capture a terrorist alive when I'm president, they're going to Guantanamo, and we're going to find out everything they know. Oh, and by the way, this is a message to the Cuban government and anyone who's listening. We're keeping Guantanamo forever. Okay? We're keeping it forever. It's a good base. I don't want to know what he said. Please don't, because then what the press is here, I didn't even hear I didn't know what they said. I know it wasn't a bad word. That's all that matters. And by the way, as part of our national security, we're going to take care of our veterans in this country again. If you're a veteran, would you raise your hand so we can thank you for your service? Thank you very much. Actually, I'd like to introduce you to a veteran who's here today. He happens to be my brother. He was a Green Beret, 7th Special Forces, 68 through 71. If you'll raise your hand, that's my brother, Mario. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. Are you sure he's not your dad? No, he's not. My brothers, are you 21 years older than me? 21. My parents were very optimistic people. My mom was 19 when he was born. She was 40 when I was born. Same dad. And so you want to talk about an optimistic family, you know what I mean? Actually, it's a true story. When I was born, he had gone to the Army, served his time, he'd come back. He drove my mom to the hospital. They thought he was the dad. They thought he was the dad. So, all right, enough of making fun of my brother, because he hasn't. I have a mic and he doesn't, so it's not fair. But he served, and so one of the things we face in Florida, he's faced it, is these VA claims. I don't know, Tim was here earlier, I don't know if he had to leave or not, but Tim will tell you, I can tell you, a significant percentage of our casework is VA related. Where is Tim? Tim, what percentage of your casework is VA, you think? 25 or 30%. Same with us. These are people that serve our country, now have some health issues. We owe them this. We're not doing them a favor. They've earned this. And it's a hassle, a complete hassle sometimes to use this system. That's why I think there needs to be accountability. If you haven't gotten it today, go find the USA Today. Front page, top. You know what the headline says? VA suicide hotline led many people to voicemail. To voicemail. Do you think anyone's going to be fired over that? No. People might get a bonus. They might get promoted, but not fired. There's no accountability. This is absurd. It's immoral. We have a record number of veterans committing suicide, homeless, unemployed, and waiting in long lines for the care they deserve. When I'm President of the United States, our veterans will be able to take their VA benefits to any hospital or any doctor they want to go to. As you can see, we have a lot of work to do. That's just a small snippet. We got to deal with the debt. No one talks about the debt anymore. It's a huge debt. $19 trillion, $20 trillion. This generation of American leadership is the most selfish generation of leaders we have ever had in the history of this country. Their attitude is, the debt, let the future worry about it. They're running up this tab. No one talks about it. In the meanwhile, they know Social Security and Medicare is going bankrupt. My mom is on Social Security and Medicare. I'm from Florida. I don't know if you know this. There's a lot of people on Social Security and Medicare in Florida. And so people ask me, what's your position on Social Security and Medicare? I'm against anything that's bad for my mom. The good news is we don't have to change anything for her or people that are on it now. But the truth is it's going to have to be a little different for me. Okay? I'll be 45 in May. I feel 46. But my Medicare and Social Security is going to either look different or it will not exist. And it's not unreasonable. Instead of retiring at 67, which is what I'm supposed to retire at, maybe I have to retire at 68. If I was still in the Senate, I'd be one of the youngest people there. If I was a Democrat running for president, I would be the youngest candidate. Social Security, if I've made a lot of money, I'm very, very wealthy, it's not going to grow as fast for me as it grows for someone who made less money. Medicare could be the option of taking my Medicare money and using it to buy a private plan that I like better. Like Medicare Advantage works now, and it works well for a lot of people. It works well for my mom. It's a choice. The point is, if we do nothing, these programs go away, they go bankrupt. These people know this. All you need is a calculator and a few seconds to figure it out. And they don't care. They're not doing anything about it. And it's wrong because we're going to have a debt crisis. And a U.S. debt crisis would be unlike any debt crisis in the history of the world. We have to do something about it. And when I'm president, we will. We will confront this issue once and for all. And I have a plan to do it. But it all starts with this election. An election we cannot afford to lose. That's why I said at the outset, this election can't be about making a point. We don't have the luxury of making a point. This election has to be about making a difference, and it begins by winning. I know that if I'm our nominee, I win. You know why I know that? Because the Democrats know that. It's not just polls. Yes, every poll shows that I beat Hillary by more than anybody else consistently. But the Democrats, they attack me 5 or 6 times for every time they attack somebody else because they don't want to run against me. I can't wait to run against them, though, and I want you to give me that chance because we can do it. But first we have to win this primary. And it's been an interesting ride. It's been an interesting ride. When this primary began, 1 out of 8 Republicans was running for president. That was a lot of people. Okay? The debate stage, remember the first debate? I don't know, like 20 people up there? So, and you are, is this huge number of people. That's fine. That's good. That means we have a lot of talent in this party. A lot of talent. Look at this party. Look at the number of national leaders in the Republican Party in their 30s and 40s and early 50s. And in your state here, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott. Bobby Jindal of Louisiana. I mean, the list goes on and on. We have so many. What do we all have in common? We grew up in the era of Reagan. We grew up at a time when there was a president that told us it was morning in America. He understood our challenges. Jimmy Carter was not a very good president. He was a really bad president. But Reagan believed in America. He knew we had challenges. But he understood that at the end, America was not a government. America is not a government. The United States is not a government. The United States is a people. And every morning, our people every morning, they get up, they go to work, they raise their families, they run their businesses, they volunteer in the community, they contribute to charity. They're not waiting for the government to come in to start their business. They're not waiting for someone to order them to give an elderly neighbor a ride to the doctor. That's our people. And let me tell you, if you ever want to fall in love with the American people, run for president. Because the stories you hear and the things you see, they inspire you. The American people, you know who we are? We are that single mother who cleans hotel rooms so her kids can one day be doctors. The American people is that father that drives a cab all night and is going to college during the day because he wants a better life. The American people are the people that are taking all the money out of their savings account to open a business out of the spare bedroom of their home because they believe they have a great idea that one day will succeed. That's the American people. The American people, you have any doubt about the future of America, then go meet with a young man or woman wearing the uniform of this country. If you have any doubt about what this generation has to offer, meet the young men and women who are representing us all over the world in uniform and risking their lives. And that's all you'll need to know about what lies ahead for this country and how great our people are. Our people are what you saw here in South Carolina last year when a horrible tragedy impacted the state. And motivated by the teachings of their faith, these family members who had just lost loved ones in a brutal and despicable act of violence, in front of a national audience said, "We forgive the killer because we are followers of Christ." That's the American people. We are still a great nation and a great people. We just have a bad president. And we're going to fix that in 2016. And so I want to close by telling you what drives me every day, other than coffee and Red Bull. What is it that moves me forward? Interesting side note here. I'm getting off the topic, but did you remember Red Bull used to advertise, it said, Red Bull, it gives you wings? Remember that? You know they got sued and they can't say that anymore because it's literally not true that it gives you wings? Like, that's why I drank it. I wanted to fly. Come on. Anyway, that has nothing to do with running for president, but it might make it on the evening news, so that was pretty good. So, it's not politically correct. That's right. When I'm president, everyone will have wings. Everyone. When I'm president, everyone will have wings, and Mexico's going to pay for them. For members of the press, that's called a joke. J-O-K-E is how it's spelled. Okay. I don't want to get a letter from the Mexican ambassador. I read you. We're not paying for any wings. It's a joke. Okay. All right. What? Oh, gosh. All right. So, it's been an interesting year. I want you to know what drives me every day. What drives me every day is I recognize that I am blessed. We're all blessed. But I'm especially blessed in my mind because of the following reason. My parents weren't born in this country. They were born in another place, on the island of Cuba. And in 1956, when they came here, they could have gone anywhere else. They could have stayed there. They could have gone to another country. Anything else could have happened. Here's what I know. If my parents had stayed in Cuba, or they had gone to any other nation on earth, I don't know if I would have even been born, to be honest with you. But I can tell you this, I wouldn't be where I am today. I don't care where else in the world they would have gone, there is no way I would have been running for the highest office in the land. There's no way. Because in almost every other society in the world, your future is determined by who you come from. Maybe some of you know what that's like because you come from another place. My parents knew that. When you know what life is like outside of America, you really understand how special life is inside of America. Imagine for a moment, if you've never lived, I've never lived outside of America. So I don't know what that feels like. But I know people that have. And imagine for a moment living in a society that says to you from the time you are a child, it doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter how good you are. Your parents aren't the right people. And so you can only go so far in life. In essence, you can only be whatever it is your family is. Imagine living in a place like that. Because for us, that's foreign. We are taught from our youngest days that this is a country where you can be anything you're willing to work for. If you have the ability. Right? Because I wanted to play in the NFL, and I would have. Had it not been for my lack of size, speed, and talent. Right? But we live in a place that tells you from your youngest days, you can go as far as your talent and your work will take you. And I want you to believe and understand, don't take that for granted. Because that is rare. In the history of mankind, in thousands of years of recorded human history, almost everyone that has ever lived in a very different society. A place that told you were only allowed to do whatever your family did before you. But somehow, I don't know why, but God allowed my family to come here. To the one place on earth where even the son of a bartender and a maid could have the same dreams and the same future as the son of a president or the son of a millionaire. That's what makes America different. Every country in the world has rich people. And we celebrate wealth and success in America. But what makes us different are the people that will never be rich. The people, as I said earlier, that work for a living, and they understand they're not going to get wealthy doing that. They just want to be happy. See, my parents came here with nothing. When they arrived with my brother, he was 6 years old, they had nothing. They didn't barely speak any English, had no money, no advanced education. My dad stopped going to school at 9 years of age because his mother died, and he had to go work at 9 years of age. And he never went back to school. He would work for the next 70 years of his life. My parents were never rich or famous people. You never would have heard about them had I not run for office. But they were successful people. Because working as a bartender and a maid, you know what my parents achieved? Less than 10 years after getting here with nothing, they owned a home in a safe and stable neighborhood. They retired with dignity. And they lived to see all 4 of their children live a life better than their own. That has a name. It's called the American dream. It changed my life. It changed the world. That is the America that literally changed the history of my family. And you know what drives me to run for president? That's the America I want to leave for my kids. When they grow up, when they're my age, when they graduate from high school in a few years, when they graduate from college, when they decide to start a business or start a family or buy a home, that is the America I desperately want them to have, because they deserve to inherit what we did. How can I, someone who has benefited from the greatness of this country, stand by and do nothing while the greatest nation in the world declines? How can we, whose lives have been changed by this country, stand by and do nothing? Are we truly prepared to become the first generation in American history that fails to leave their children better off than themselves? Because that's where we're headed now. But it doesn't have to be that way. I'm asking you for your vote because I respect everyone else in this race. It's hard to run for president. But no one running in this race has more passion for what I just said to you than I do. I'm not saying they don't love their country. Of course they do. And they're motivated by this. But I can tell you no one is more passionate about this than I am. Because America owes me nothing. But I have a debt to this country I'll never repay. This isn't... And so I want to leave one more time by asking you to vote for me. If you vote for me, we will win this election. If you vote for me, we are going to re-embrace the principles that made this nation great, and we are going to apply them to the challenges of the 21st century. If you vote for me and I'm elected president, I am going to be a president for all Americans, even the people that don't like me. And not everyone's going to like me, because we're going to make a difference, and people are going to be against some of the things I do, and they're going to protest me, and they're going to say nasty things about me on Twitter, and they're going to try to disrupt our events, and they're going to post nasty things on Facebook. You know what? I'm still going to cut their taxes. Here's what I will not do. I will never, as President of the United States of America, come to you and ask you to be angry at another group of Americans. I will never pitch you against each other on purpose. We are not going to agree on everything. We're Americans. We have opinions about everything. We're not going to agree on everything. But you are not going to have in me a president that divides 51% of Americans against 49% of Americans so we can win an election. Because in the end, I intend to be the president of all Americans. If you want to be president, you have to love the American people, even those that do not love you back. You elect me president, I'll never embarrass you. Now, you may not agree with everything. Well, if you see me dance, you might be embarrassed. But beyond that, I will work every day to make sure that you don't look at me and say, oh, I can't believe I voted for that guy. How embarrassing. I had his bumper sticker on my car. I sat for 2 hours and listened to his corny jokes in North Myrtle Beach, and then I voted for him. That doesn't mean you'll always agree with everything I stand for. Look, I'm a Florida Gator fan. You probably hate me already for that, right? All right. Roll Tide. So greedy. What a greedy university. They keep winning national championships. How many do you need? Right, Clemson people, right? Next year. I'll work every day to make sure that no matter what we do, you'll always be proud that you cast a vote for me. That we bring dignity to that office. And everything I do, I represent you well. I want to be President of the United States because I want to pay back some of that debt I owe this country at a key moment in our history. And here's what I believe with all my heart. I believe that if we do what needs to be done in this generation, the American dream that changed our lives in the world, that American dream won't just survive. It's going to reach more people. It's going to change more lives than ever before. We are all called to save the American dream, because who among us in this room, who among us is not a generation or two removed from someone who made our future the purpose of their lives? You know the story. You know the sacrifices. Maybe it was your grandparents that made them for your parents. Maybe it was your parents that made them for you. You remember the parents that worked 2 jobs, that gave up on their own dreams so that yours could live? who did anything they could so you could have the chance to do all the things they never could? Or maybe that's what you did for your kids. Maybe that's what you're doing for them now. We have all benefited from the greatness of this country. We are all called to save the American dream. And each generation has done so for over 2 centuries. Now the moment has arrived for us to do our part. And if we do what needs to be done in this election and in the years to come, the American dream is going to reach more people and change more lives than ever before. Our children are going to be the freest and the most prosperous Americans that have ever lived. And when our work is done, history will say that the 21st century, because of us, was not just as good as the 20th century, it was better. It was a new American century, and we in this generation were the authors of the greatest chapter in the amazing story of the greatest nation in the history of all mankind. So thank you. I need your vote. Thank you very much.